So a few videos ago, I said this. One of my favorite layouts ever, the RICO drill. I kicked that baby out pretty far, 45 degrees. And then 302 EFI commented this. So Al decided to reply. And so we thought this was pretty interesting. So we made a few phone calls and we wanted to bring in the man himself to talk about it, Ric Hamlin. Welcome, Ric. Thanks for being out here. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me out here. I'm really excited about doing this today.
All right, so Ric, what have you been up to?
Well, you know, the last 6 months or so, I've decided to create what you're seeing right here is BowlTec. BowlTec's going to be a little bit more of an informational, educational website that we're trying to do. And this is why I was really excited to be able to come in here with you, because this is something that we want to transition into more YouTube informational videos. And that's why I was really excited when you guys called me about this, because I was really excited to be able to see Specto, which is something we're looking at using. But we're just trying to transition into more of educating the pro shops and the bowlers, offering more information there and try to make it easier for bowlers to be able to improve.
Absolutely. So how can all the people see what you're up to?
Right now we're on Facebook, so you can go on Facebook and look up BowlTec. It's BOWLTEC. Facebook is the area that we're targeting right now as we're moving forward.
Perfect. So go follow him there. And so today we are going to dig into what you've been known for over the years is the RICO drilling. We're going to use the old school RICO drill. We're going to drill an axiom, a symmetrical bowling ball, and put a hole in it to create that asymmetry. Then we're going to try out a proton physics, an asymmetrical ball with the same cover stock, and we're going to not put a hole in it and test the intermediate diff versus the balance hole.
We'll call that the new school versus the old school.
Absolutely. So give me a little bit about your history and just kind of where this came from and your experience with the RICO drill.
In the big scheme of things, this layout was actually used out on tour in the 90s when Ray Edwards was actually the PBA rep for Brunswick. And it kind of went to the wayside, and then it kind of came about again when I was working for Brunswick and we were at a couple of tournaments, that the conditions kind of required something that this layout was going to give, which was going to be a smoother transition throughout the lane front to back. There was a video that went live. The person that did it ended up nicknaming it the RICO layout, and it blew up from there. I've been fortunate to be tagged because of it, but I've also spent a lot more time trying to research it and understand it, have a better comprehension of it, so when I recommend it to people that I know it's going to do what we want it to do. You know, Parker Bone won with it in 2007 using the Twisted Fury. Pete Weber has used it at time. Chris Barnes has used it at time. There's other players that have used it. And it basically is just that layout that when the lanes are in a lower, flatter type of condition, it's going to help something that's going to blend out the lane and not force angles to where the bowler is going to be able to get out of that ball and be able to go into something else.
So yeah, that hits home even for me, and I'm sure some of the fans out there is watching some of those professionals win with this cool, funky layout. It's different. So shout out to Brunswick and all that for happening, because that's why we're here. We also have our throwbot today, great local bowler from Colorado, Chris Martinez.
How you guys doing?
Welcome, Chris. Thanks for doing this for us.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for the invitation. I'm ready to throw some strikes today.
So what you're going to be able to see with the Specto is how that ball tracked going down the lane. That was a pretty good shot. When we go to the photon, we're going to be able to compare the two to see how close they are. We're not going to be using opinion. We're not going to be using somebody's perspective on this. We're actually going to be using the Specto system to be able to show how close these two bowling balls actually are.
And right now, from what I'm seeing originally, so I already have an axiom drilled with a pin up. This is definitely smoother.
A little bit smoother front to back, right. One of the biggest reasons why we used it so much, because we used it on conditions that were definitely a little bit flatter, and you needed the ball to be smoother front to back, so it was easier to control the condition and not force you in different angles with what the bowling ball might give you.
Correct, correct.
So now we can see that that shot was a little bit inside of the other shot.
Yep.
Not a lot, but the great thing with you is your release angle, your launch angle, the speed off of your hand is pretty close. I mean, they're like within 100,000ths of a mile.
Yeah, you're spot on. So I did get that a little bit inside. Right now I think what I'm gonna do is start moving in a little bit.
Right.
And let's just start cheating this, and let's see how far we can take it.
And that's the good thing. I mean, you missed in a little bit, and that ball did what it should have done.
Correct.
It should have been a little deeper into the pocket, and it did continue through the pins pretty well.
Right. And the second shot, and this is where, you know, I think Garrett has mentioned this in previous videos, that I had an errant shot that got out to the outside. That told me I had hook outside. So now I feel a little more comfortable by moving left, and maybe try to cheat that a little bit and use that hook.
This is something a lot of bowlers, you know, a lot of times when somebody wins a tournament, they are always assuming that the guy bowled better. More times than not, the guy is being able to create a little bit more miss room, which is giving you that advantage in your mind.
We're gonna do let's do a little 2-and-1 here.
So we're going 2-and-1. So this one's gonna probably be closer to 12, 13 at the arrows.
Cheat it up, right? A little weak.
When we used this layout a lot when I was with Brunswick, it's when we got on tougher conditions where it was a lot flatter, where there wasn't maybe a defined path on the lane, we would go to this ball with a lot of the staff guys. It was giving the guys a better chance to control the lane until they could go to another bowling ball. It's not doing anything strange when it sees friction versus when it sees oil.
All right, so let's test that hook spot. Because we're mentioning like how that layout kind of smooths everything out. So in theory, when it hits that hook spot, it's not going to overreact. So let's try that. Let's see what it does.
Your farthest misses right have been right around 11 and a half board. So let's see, keeping your feet in that and opening up the front angle a little bit. It's a good shot to finish on.
I like that.
All right, guys, so Axiom with a hole in it. This is the original Rico drill. I got some information on his Specto. What are you seeing out there, Rick?
I'm seeing what I think the initial reasoning for this ball was. I mean, I'm seeing everything that he's getting with it. It's giving you the nice, smooth, controllable reaction. You're not having to create anything out of the realm by looking at your numbers. So I think we were able to accomplish what we were trying for.
I agree. Even the times where I hit up on the ball, she didn't overreact on it.
Right. And that's kind of the whole deal with this bowling ball, was try to create controllability front to back. So now the next goal is, can we bring that into the new by using an ASIM? We're going to drill the proton physics. We're going to compare the two and see how they are.
Sweet, let's do it.
This is 2,000, this is 3,000. So without looking at the Specto numbers, that shot was inside your target, was it not?
Yeah, I actually lost it on the bottom of my hand, to be honest with you. I would normally anticipate right now this to be about 2 to 3 boards bigger.
Right, and that's why where you flat tend or half pocket it with the Axiom, that ball didn't see that. And part of that, I'm gonna say, is a little bit more surface. And that little bit of extra surface should give it that little bit of extra grab on the lane, so it didn't see the volume as much as the Axiom did.
Yes, correct. I mean, if I would have done the same thing on this ball, I fully anticipate that I would have left a flat 10. Okay, so we're gonna do what we did, we're supposed to stand right where we were with the Axiom. Just get a true reading on this. That's better. And that's what I was expecting. We're gonna take a 3-board move on this. We're gonna move 3-and-1.
That's pretty close. With the close-up, we can see the amount of separation that's in the flares and the amount of overall path. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna have him throw the Axiom, and this is more of the science part of it versus somebody's opinion. When you look at when he throws the Axiom, the flares are gonna be very similar to this, and the overall amount's gonna be very similar, which is showing us, by layout, they're very similar. The separation is almost identical. And this is where what we were talking about with when you're looking at the two, there's not a whole lot of difference in between the separation with the flares and the amount of overall flares. So this should be able to answer a little bit more of the question of, is this ASIM laid out what would be considered the true RICO? And in my opinion, yes. All right, that was a good way to finish. Yes, okay.
Absolutely. So there we have it, guys. That's the proton physics without a hole in it, asymmetric ball. We got now both information of both bowling balls. Let's talk about what we saw out there.
Everything kind of fits into the ball motion is very similar between the two bowling balls. The only difference is you got one with a little bit more surface, you got one that's got a little bit more guts in it. So this is showing us that I think we did what we needed to do. So your axis is 4 3/8, 3/4 up.
4 5/8.
4 5/8. Okay, so we're looking at a pin on both of those bowling balls by being center of your grip is right at 4 5/8 inches. So you're looking at a relatively medium type of a layout. You're not getting anything too strong. You're not getting anything too weak. So now with the weight hole being at 6 3/4 off the pin on the axiom at 45 degrees, all we did was by mimicking that or trying to copy it, we put the ASIM, the intermediate differential, the mass bias, whatever term we want to use, we've put that in the same position as where the weight hole would be. And that's kind of the logic behind it, the science behind it is the mass bias position is taking the place of the weight hole. If somebody like, let's say, Al, whose rev rate is much higher, but his axis is going to be 5 5/8, that's going to be a farther pin to PAP for him, but it's also going to give him more controllability because it's going to lower the flare for him. But it's still going to try to create or mimic that shape. So even though it's not PAP specific, it's characteristic enhancement. I think we're able to actually say, we've answered the question, can we do it with an ASIM bowling ball? And I think between showing what the flare looks like and then showing the science side of it, kind of answers our question. What do you think?
Oh, I'm completely satisfied. I'm sold. I actually haven't had a RICO, personally I haven't had a RICO in my arsenal in like 8, 9 years. And this has kind of opened up a new door for me, especially look at the proton, as big as that ball is, I was able to make that control from going from the axiom to the proton. So it just opened up a whole new door that I'm considering.
So yeah, with those factors involved, we got flare, we've got the intermediate diff in the proton physics that kind of makes up the difference of the balance hole. So I think that did it for us. We have found out that you can use RICO today without a balance hole, just has to be an asymmetric bowling ball.